card. All right. So, welcome everybody to this talk about the human design transits and the tarot of the Venus retrograde that is coming up. So this one is a huge deal. Everybody's talking about it and there is a reason behind that. But as you know, I have a very special guest here today, Denise from Human Design with Denise on YouTube. Thank you so much for coming back. Thank you so much for doing this video. I really appreciate it. And I love the way that we worked on the Mercury video, and I'm really looking forward to putting this out there. So Denise, please tell everybody who you are and where they can find you.
You pretty much said who I was, but basically, yes, I am on YouTube and I do have a website. I have two websites. So if you just put in Denise Mathew, you might get a jewelry website because that's my original starting point. But HD with Denise Mathew is the place where you'll find all the human design stuff. And I also have my website, denisematthew.com, if you want to check out some freebies I have there, some PDF downloads. And I also have my Oracle cards for sale there. So a little plug for myself. It's getting close to Christmas and everything, but why not? But and thank you so much for having me here. I'm really happy to be back again to talk about something that sounds really intriguing and synchronistic by the research that I've been doing.
Yeah, awesome. So guys, if you don't know already, maybe you've been living under a rock, but obviously the human design oracle cards that I use in my readings were designed by Denise, and she very graciously gifted me a set. So if you want to get yours, head over, there's a link in the description box. You'll be able to check out her channel and also her website. So with that said, let's get into the Venus retrograde. So the dates that you're going to need to know where Venus is actually retrograde, this is without the shadow period either side, are December 19th through the 29th of January of 2022. That is the time that Venus is going to spend in her actual retrograde fashion. And so what I've done here is pulled some of the cards in the major arcana that would represent this transit. So the first one, obviously, that we need to talk about is the Empress. So the lady of pleasure, the lady of leisure, all things beautiful, abundant, fertile. And if you look at her, so if you look at the card there, you can see on the crest, Venus's symbol. So when you're talking about Venus in the major arcana or in the tarot deck, especially in the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, that is always going to be the Empress, right? So, and if you look at the scene on the card, it's beautiful, it's lush, it's vibrant. She's actually like, a lot of people say that you can see the hint of her being pregnant and fertile. So there's all of that energy to it as well. So that's a really beautiful card. It also as well represents all of the pleasurable things of life. Now, on top of that, because we're talking about Capricorn, we have to talk about the Devil card, right? This is the card that represents Capricorn. This is the card that represents that energy. Now, because the Devil card gets a really bad rap, right? And you think like a whole bunch of people are ruled by the sign of Capricorn. So let's take a moment for just a sec and think about some of the positive attributes of this card. What it can suggest is, especially if it comes up in a position of strength for the querent or for the client that you're reading for, this is about somebody that's tenacious, somebody that knows how to get obsessed in the best way, to hold on to something, to do something until it really is done. Now, that in itself is actually a very powerful energy. So, you know, these are the things that Capricorn are known for in their great attributes. Being able to see things through to completion and really getting, borderline obsessed with them, but in the right way. It represents being determined and really being able to hold to an idea. Now, in its detriment or in its unconscious expression, let's say, this would literally represent or speak to obsession, addiction, being stuck in your ways or holding on to something, and all of the basal instincts as well that we might give over to, some of the heavier vibrations of lust and fear, possibly even depravity and excess. Now, interestingly enough, when you think about the things that I've just mentioned there, you could definitely think about Venus at her worst, right? Because when you talk about this, we're talking about the energy of vanity. We're talking about the energy of you know, luxury gone to excess, where it's no longer really opulence, it's just, you know, more for the sake of more. So when we see these two together as well, we're going to talk about that in just a moment. And then finally, because we're talking about Saturn's sign, we do need to talk about this card of the World. So this is all about completion, culmination, right? It's all about the physical manifest world, the structures, and how they move through changes, all right? So this card is also a card of mastery. And because we're talking about Saturn sign, we have to talk about the planet as well. Interestingly enough, the planet Saturn that this card is ruled by is currently in the sign of Aquarius, which is known as a very worldly sort of we the people sign. So it's really interesting the way that these cards kind of combine. I've got some notes here about things that we might talk about. So these two specifically, we could literally be seeing greed, excess, and denial. So this is, you know, where a small portion or percentage of the world holds on to most of the resources, holds on to most of the wealth, holds on to most of the goodies, let's say. If we add to this though, the World card, suddenly, especially because Saturn and Capricorn rule things like the bigger structures, the hierarchical structures, we could see money changes. Venus rules money. We could definitely see resets in some way, shape, or form, because the World card is what precedes the button push, right? What follows the World card? The Fool, where we get a brand new level playing field. So I find this really interesting. And if you've seen any of my videos where I talk about 2022, we did talk about the fact that 2022 is going to be a year where we see a lot of playing fields start to come more into line. We may not necessarily see all of it. We might not necessarily see what we'd really like, but we'll definitely start to feel the seeds of those things being sown, where we get more fairness, more equality. Other things that I put down here as well, this could potentially, because the death card is a completion, the World card is a culmination or a completion. We could see the death of a prominent female figure in the world. It's very possible, or the fall or the suppression of a very prominent female in the world. So that's, you know, it's an interesting energy, the way that they show up. And then finally, if you look on the Devil card, at the top of his head, he's got the inverted pentacle, and that represents the consciousness coming down just into the body and being ruled by just the base senses. At its worst, that is Venus, right? It's just what I can see, what I can touch, what I can spend, not interested in the depth, the beauty, the, you know, the love, the harmony, or anything. So very, very interesting stuff. Now, furthermore to that, because we're going to be seeing Venus moving out of the gate, out of the third decan of Capricorn, that represents, or that is represented by the Sun in Capricorn, which is the Four of Pentacles in the Minor Arcana. And what this talks about, have I got the right one here? Yes, I have. So the third decan, this is idealism, all right? So I really feel like we might see some of that as Venus finishes up this transit, when she comes back into the third decan as she's on her way forward. I think we could start to see some really positive build-ups of new things. So that could be really nice. As it comes back into the second decan though, we have the Three of Pentacles. Now, while this can represent education and learning, gaining new insight, what the key word for this could be martyrdom. And I do wonder if this feeds into this idea that there's going to be the fall of a prominent female, or we're going to see some sort of holding back of that, and quite possibly the revelation or the releasing of information that we didn't have before. You know, like I've been saying for months, I feel like this Venus retrograde is really going to shake up the financial structures of the world. So it will be interesting to see how it comes about. And finally, obviously we talk about Venus ruling money, but she also represents cleanliness. And there's a feeling about this, that as she's going through the sign of Capricorn, she's cleaning up the things that are Capricorn ruled. Structures, society, the hierarchy, you know, people that are in high places. if you're not clean, if you're not doing things right or by the book, this is a time where we're likely to see that stuff, and those people really found out. So it will be interesting to see how it kind of comes about. So Denise, please, what do you think?
Well, I mean, just related to your release of information, and immediately I thought about the gate 61. And I thought, well, Pluto's been sort of riding within Pluto's been riding within the gate 61 for a lot of 2021, but it'll only go for a short period next year in 2022. So it's kind of like doing its final dance, you could say. And it's all about like an exaltation, which I said Pluto only goes there only every 256 years because of the Pluto cycle. It's only going to go in what's called the exaltation of Pluto, which is 61 line 6. And that is all about inspiration, information, mutative ideas. It's a new way of thinking, and it's a mutating of the way we think. And I think a lot of mental health things will be shifted. We might have some information about how we can better deal with mental health. And I think that after the pandemic and everything, that's a really wonderful option, because people have that has been a theme that's been pointed out. But, you know, this is unloading of information. This is about people kind of just being allowed to see what's beneath the surface, because Pluto, of course, is going to strip it back. It's going to say, this is the truth. I mean, Pluto has all the same meanings in human design, but the one word, exactly, judgment, the one word that we can really add to the whole theme of Pluto is the truth. So this is where we go for the truth. So Pluto will show us the truth. It will take everything down to the foundation and say, okay, this is what we have. Now we can rebuild. And that's where I like that. I got kind of excited, and all the rest of it with the Venus and everything. I mean, I think that Venus here, we can look back to 2014 from January to March, and any themes that were happening in your life. It's not necessarily a repeat of the theme, but sort of kind of, you could say, an innuendo of things that were happening that. And you know, as we know with themes of our lives, they're always going to build on the past theme. So in other words, what you were dealing with back then, you're going to deal with in a different way, in a more evolved way, we could say, because that's what we're doing. We're always evolving. I mean, that's 8 or 9 years ago. So that's a really great place for people to look back at what they were doing. And I can see you're actually thinking about something you were doing back then.
Gosh, yeah, like God, I remember exactly where I was and what was going on at the time. And it's really interesting when you say about how, you know, we evolve and stuff. It's true. Like, I am leaps and bounds, but I can already see how those themes might start to come up again. So I'm like, okay, cool, I'm ready.
Yeah, but it's the new version of you. So we're never going to be acting or reacting or doing the same thing unless, you know, we haven't learned our lessons. But I don't think anybody who's on a spiritual journey is not going to have some level of evolution. I mean, it's going to happen. It's just part of being on the path of trying to be your best self. I mean, spirituality is always going to be about trying to be your best self. So, you know, Venus is going to give us an opportunity to look at those themes and say, what was it? Now, for me, I can remember too, it was about putting all my trust into what I don't want to say guru, but a spiritual leader for me, who I was putting all my trust in, thinking that they knew better than me. But then at that time, and it was happening in my 9th house, that was where my my Venus was retrograding. You know, I realized that I knew more than I thought I did, and I wasn't putting trust in myself. You know, I wasn't putting trust in my own authority. And at that moment, I said, okay, this is not correct for me, and I can go on my own and be okay. And I think that that's the whole theme, where Venus is saying that, where are we putting our energy in that maybe we are giving our power away to somebody else? Because as much as Venus is a beautiful goddess that's all full of pleasure, she's all about a warrior goddess too, the morning star and the evening star. You know what I mean? So there's the two sides of Venus. Based on this particular, where the midpoint is between the retrogrades that we sort of talked about before, it's basically going to be a morning star, which means that this is the warrior Venus that's saying, okay, I'm a strong feminine energy, yin energy. This doesn't have to be a woman or anything like that. It's just the yin energy. And, you know, of course, Mars is a yang energy, and there's a balance between the two. One side, we go too far on the yin side, we're pushover, too far on the yang side, and we're just too aggressive. So this is basically saying, you know, I will stand in my truth. And there's so many other indications of where we are here to stand in our truth and to be the best version of ourselves. Exactly. The world. And I love the world card. I mean, that's been coming up a lot. Like I don't know, I've been seeing that card a lot. So it really, you know, it's this cycle of things. And I mean, this is the end of a Venus cycle too. So, you know, that part of it is, we're starting a brand new cycle. And I think that most people can say, yes, I'm happy. I'm ready to begin a new cycle. I'm ready for change. But then the other perspective is, are you ready for change that actually feels like change? Or are you ready for change that you don't want to change anything, but you're still getting the change? So that's what we have to look at too. You know, sometimes we have to look at the things we need to change and we think, well, I don't want to change it. But sometimes that's the best part of it, is that when we release that thing that's been holding us back, we suddenly feel this sense of a breath of fresh air and just moving forward. And I wrote this, I said this the other day, and I thought it was, you know, it kind of came to me and I thought, yeah, that makes sense to me. It's like you're walking on your new path and the universe is that soft breeze on your back, just guiding you forward and saying, you know what, you're going to do just fine. I'm always here with you, because the universe always does have our back, no matter what we think. The universe is always there. It's always acting on our behalf. And it will show us, it'll show us in divine timing, as you could say. So what shall we talk about first, do you think?
Love that. And it's brilliant, and it's so true as well. I think, you know, and I think there's a lot of people that have had experiences like this recently, like at that moment where you think this is not going to work, it's not happening, it's not this, and then something just shows up to say, actually, you're in the right space, you're doing what you need to do, you know, and I can totally resonate with that. I really, really can. So let's look at some obviously important dates. So the first thing that we talked about earlier, when you mentioned Pluto, that's really important. So Pluto in the tarot, especially in the major arcana, is the judgment card, right? This is the card that brings everything up from the depths, from the dark, from the, you know, from the psyche. It's what I often call the blast from the past card. When this card shows up, you can bet you're going to hear from an ex, an old employee, an old employer, a boss, a friend, somebody that you haven't seen for a long time tends to show up with this card. You add this into the mix then with the Empress card. This could be, for some people, maybe there is, I mean, on the really heavier side, we put the devil card in there. For those of you that have had, and you know, we all have a vice of some sort, whether it's coffee or smoking or whatever. If you've had any vices in the past, you might find throughout this process that you're reaching for them again. This is where that energy of enlightenment that Denise was talking about really comes in, right? This is where you can say, I'm going to either tread the same path or I'm going to do it in an evolved version. So when you feel yourself sort of reaching for, oh, you know what, that's it, I'm going to drink, you know, 7 glasses of wine tonight, you can say, well, actually, I'll have one and then I'll go for a walk. Like there's a moment here, I actually believe, where we can all make different, more informed and more aligned choices somewhere. And remember, Venus is always about, it's about harmony and it's about smoothing off the edges as well, right? So this could be a time where whatever our challenges were, we find new ways to approach them. So that is, and it's prominent as well, because on the 19th of December, Venus is going to be at 26 degrees of Capricorn, and she's going to retrograde, obviously backward through the degrees. That's important because it's the first time that she's going to conjunct Pluto, but it's not the last. So we'll be revisiting that energy again at a further point forward.
Yeah, it is actually, she's going to be connecting with, I mean, we could look at the themes of the human design themes if you want to look at the themes and then go through the dates of how the themes are going to play in. So I have, I can share my screen if you want, just so we have a visual. All right. And whoops. I don't want multiple screens. No, that would be a little confusing. How's that look? Is that okay?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, so basically we have, as we know, the Venus retrograde and whatever. So there's 4 themes, which means that we could talk about Venus and Capricorn and how it is, and you've already discussed it. So we know how that kind of theme is. When we get to the human design, we're going to overlay a little bit with it. We're going to say, it's going to be these specific themes that we may be really working with. And what are those themes? Well, we have the gate 61, the gate 60, 54, and 38. Well, when we talk about the gate 61, I think that's kind of the most interesting. And that is actually, I believe, where we have Pluto and Venus conjuncting on the gate 60 at the gate 61. So this is really talking about occult information. And we talk about occult, of course, that's just hidden. And I know that it kind of gets this nefarious name of occult. What is that? You know, it's just basically hidden. Exactly. And it's not as scary as it sounds, but it is this hidden information. And this is where Pluto's gently going through and sort of saying, okay, there's hidden information. We need to find out the information that has been hidden, and let's look at it. We haven't had this information, and again, this could be brand new information, because when we talk about the gate 61, or we talk about any of what we consider individual energy in human design, there's 3 types of energy. There's collective energy, which is what runs the world. It's all about sharing. It's about the internet. It's about the things that make our world continue to flow, the planes that will arrive on time, and you know, all the social structures that we have in our life is collective energy. Individual energy is the mutation that comes in and says, okay, it's great that everything's been like this, but we have to change. We have to evolve. So as soon as we're talking about individual energy, we're talking about evolution on a wider basis. Now, for an individual a person who has this energy within them, then this is really about you being mutative or different, or thinking outside of the box. Now, because we know that if there's anything that we like as a collective, we like everything to have a good, smooth pattern. You want to go to the bus, you want to get on the bus, you want to go to the place you want to go. You don't want to worry, is it going to come? Did I miss it? You know, so that's why we have all these schedules. But the gate 61 or any individual energy comes in and says, no, we're going to shift that up. Now we're going to make it different. And what happens whenever you have this new and brand new thing that's coming in, and it is in the end going to evolve us in some way, we're going to say, no, I don't want that. I don't want it. I'm not interested. But having said that, that's how we grow. An interesting line within the gate 61 is this concept of finding out this mystical information and yet holding it to yourself, not telling anybody about it. And the key with anything that's mystical, it has to be shared with the collective, because if it doesn't, it never gets out into the world and it never becomes part of the collective. That's the only way. So we need to mutate by speaking what we see. So in other words, and this kind of works in with the gate 54 as well, which is like that mystical line. What that talks about is this idea of we've all had these mystical experiences. I think, you know, some of us more than others. I think that if you're on a spiritual path, you're going to have these satori's, or these moments of realization where suddenly things kind of, all the mundane stuff of life just kind of moves out of your way, and you see something amazingly beautiful, and for that moment or 30 seconds or 5 minutes or whatever amount of time it lasts, you suddenly kind of go somewhere else and you transcend the world around you. And you could say it's almost like a matrix moment where you see beyond the matrix, you could say.
Yeah.
So that's what the gate 61 is really talking about. It's talking about those transcendent moments, but also the gate 54 plays into it too, that mystical line that I've talked about, the gate 54 line 4, where where we see these mystical things. But what happens is, unfortunately, you know, this is a community right here, your community, my community. We talk about things that are mystical, things that are not of the norm, that these experiences that, you know, all these kind of things that a lot of people look at and say, oh, well, that's weird. It's odd. It's not, you know, it's whatever. And so you have a mystical experience, and instead of sharing it with people, you hold it within you. And you think, oh, well, this is just my imagination. It wasn't anything important. And so by muting that experience, you are muting that energy that should be out in the world, that should be allowed to grow, to evolve, to spread to the collective. Because without that, you know, how do we allow people to know, these young fellows and these women, men, non-binary, whoever are out there, saying, okay, we're not going to give you the information so that you know what, you're not crazy. This is okay. What's happening to you is okay. We've all had those experiences. And I think that we all have to start to express those, what we consider crazy synchronicities. And the one thing that, the founder of Human Design said, he said, you'll have these synchronicities where you will have, you'll think about somebody and they'll call you up and you'll go, wow, that's, but you'll go, oh, it's nothing. It's not a big deal. Let's get pragmatic about life. And I think that those are the most important things that we need to share with people, to know that if you are seeing something that other people aren't seeing, or you're having these mystical experiences and you think, well, I'm the only person that's ever had this experience, you're not. You are not alone. And I think that's where we need to feel that there's a community, that there are more people out there. And that's what this energy is telling us about. It's saying, don't hide your light beneath a bushel, show it to the world, allow people to know that you have this gift or this one thing that you're good at. And we're all good at something, whatever that is. We all have a talent of some sort. And this is just kind of expressing this ability to connect with that thing that we don't necessarily see all the time, but that magical thing that just kind of shows up. I mean, I had an experience where I thought I saw an angel many years ago when I was a nurse many years ago, and I was working on a pediatric floor, and there was a young girl who was quite sick, and I called the doctor and I said, she's not doing well. And he said, oh, well, if this and this, is okay, then just let her, whatever, and I'll see her in the morning. In other words, he didn't want to come in. The next morning he came in and he said, why didn't you call me? Why didn't you call me? And I mean, I was young at the point and that time, and I thought, oh my God, I killed this kid. I mean, this kid is going to go down the tubes because I was, whatever. And I really, at that point, was walking home from work, and I'd worked the night shift, and I was walking home from work, and I was saying, I was just questioning my whole life, questioning, had I made a mistake that might have caused someone their life, a kid, right? How horrible. And I was just walking down, and there I saw this man with gray hair and the bluest eyes I've ever seen. I've never seen blue eyes as blue as those. And he said to me, it's all going to be okay. And that was like 7:00 in the morning. And I will tell you that that's like 20 or 30 years ago, and it still gives me the shivers. But that was a message that told me, no, it's all going to be good. And when I went back in the next night, she was fine and all was okay. But there are those messengers all around us. There's birds, there's everything. And this is a time to connect with those and sort of do a healing within that energy, because every one of these gates have a healing energy within them as well, which we can talk about later on if we have time. If not, that's fine. But they all have a healing, so that we could say that, when we're talking about the gate 61 and these occult experiences, it is about how can we talk to people in a way that it is a practical expression of why this was valuable to me. Why was it valuable that I had that? You could seemingly say, that person to me wasn't a person. It was something, it was an entity of some sort that was there to help me, because when I turned around, they were gone. I mean, there's too many things. Why did that help me? Well, the practical expression of it was that I needed to be supported at that point, to know that I was doing the best I could. And my whole job was to help people. That's what I wanted to do. And to kind of get into that mindset where you think that you're actually lost, you're never going to go ahead, and you've done everything wrong. Instead of doing that, I kind of pulled out of that and was able to realize that, the universe has us all in its hands, you could say. And we're all being shown the journey, the way that we need to go. And it's about looking at and looking for those signs that are showing you of the path that you're meant to go. And that's the gate 61 in a nutshell.
I love it. Thank you. And you know what, when I was looking into these, some of the stuff that you said is just phenomenal, and it really helps, especially because anybody that's now watching this or is going to watch it, when this stuff comes up for you between now and the end of Venus's retrograde, you know what to look for. And when you have those moments or those experiences, speak them to the world. One of the things that I wrote here was trusting in yourself and the universe to deliver what you need to know, right? So trusting the universe is going to bring it to you, but trusting yourself to be okay to receive that message and to know that it was a message for you. I love that. What I also put here as well was tapping into something primal and unknown. And I kind of get this feeling, like, in a sense, that maybe a lot of people will discover new gifts at this time, whether this
Yes.
is psychic awareness, maybe you start prophetic dreaming, maybe you know, start maybe your clairaudience kicks in, or maybe you start to think, okay, those people that I saw when I was 5 years old were actually people that had passed on, and they used to talk to me and give me, you know, like, there could be some really amazing experiences that come from this. And when those things switch on in us, sometimes suddenly, or they've been repressed for so long and then they're cracked wide open, it can be so disconcerting, you know. Or if you've ignored it for years and you're like, no, that doesn't happen, you know, you do whatever you can to medicate it away, and then one day you can't anymore. This is the time to speak on those things. It's the time to trust that. I also put here as well, can you let go of what you know in order to know or learn what you don't? This could be a really powerful time for that. And this Gate 61 really spoke to me. Like, when I was reading it and through your booklet and stuff, I was like, yeah, I get that. This might be a time to, you know, what you think you know, pour it out, because there's going to be something new that pours in that could take you in a much better direction than you imagine. And while you were talking, some things that you said really sparked my imagination. One was, you know, this phenomena that we have where somebody has this great idea and then half the world away, somebody has the same idea at exactly the same time.
Yeah.
The reason being, and it's like, you know, when people say like, oh, I had this idea and then I saw it on TV like 6 months later, is because you didn't do anything with it. And the world, the collective needed it. So if you don't do something with these amazing downloads that come in, the universe will give it to somebody else that they know will move on it. Don't let your ideas be taken from you in that way. And then finally, the hidden depths, all of this stuff, spirituality, human design, numerology, psychic awareness, it adds such an amazing and such a beautiful dimension to life that you would never experience otherwise. Be open to it.
Yeah. And I think the nice part about the Gate 61 is, you know, we call this inspiration or pressure, or you could say the divine kind of, like you said, downloading you into your mind. Now, the thing about the Gate 61 is you may not always understand exactly what it means immediately, but later on the clarity comes, and that's the key. But having said that, Uranus is actually in the Gate 24 now, which is a harmonic, which says that we get the inspiration, and Uranus kind of deciphers it and gives us the clue of what it all means, that rationalization of what does this actually mean for me. So it's good. We're all hardwired up to get the downloads. So it's basically this kind of thing. And this could be related to sounds, because this is acoustic energy. So it could be a sound that you hear that makes you think of something, you know, that makes you think of, well, maybe I should do something. You know, it doesn't have to even be a sound that makes you feel anything related to a certain thing. So maybe you hear a bird singing and then it starts to make you think about, oh, well, maybe I should do this in my business, or maybe, you know what I mean? It's just kind of like a trigger, that an acoustic trigger that can lead you to the destiny or the new gift or whatever that you actually, because this is anything that's individual, it's acoustic energy. And it usually means that it's easier for you to connect with like sound, as opposed to maybe the visual. The visual is more of a collective thing, and the sound is more of an individual thing. And that's kind of how it works out.
So interesting. One of the things that I talked about for the 2020 in the 2022 videos was this idea that sound, vibration, and frequency would all be really important in 2022.
Absolutely.
So I love that, because it totally ties in with the numerology as well. So, all right. What about the Gate 60?
Well, the Gate 60 is one we've seen a lot. That was actually where we had the grand conjunction last year.
Is it 2020 again?
Yes, I know. Right. It's just, but you know, the thing is that we had different themes, different energies, different flavors of the Gate 60, you could say. So Saturn comes in and says, yeah, we're going to make you really be limited. We're going to really make you realize that. And then Jupiter's like, limitations, what are they? Who cares? Whatever. So you have that balance between the two. Jupiter spent a little time in the 60 and took off, and Saturn is out too. Now Saturn, I believe, is in the 19, but ultimately the Gate 60 was a theme. Now Pluto moving into the Gate 60 says, okay, that whole theme of the whole cycle of Pluto we don't have anybody in the world with Pluto in the Gate 60, or Pluto in the Gate 60. We don't have anybody in the world now, because they've all passed away because of the life cycle of humans. So now this is bringing mutative energy. With the gate 61, that's mental mutation. The gate 60 is genetic mutation. This is bringing in something new. How are we genetically shifting? What are the new things that are happening to planet Earth based on well, basically everything that's happening right now? You know, the temperature of the Earth is changing, and those types of things. What kind of new things are we getting that are shifting humanity as a collective? Well, one thing we can definitely say, we have children that are coming in that are prodigies a lot more than ever before. I think that that's something that you really notice, that we've got children that are just beyond compare, and how smart, and how, I mean, smart is like, you know, that's kind of a small word compared to the abundance of talents these children are coming in with. So there's that perspective. The other perspective of the gate 60 is when we're looking at a mundane, and when I say mundane, I just mean like just the things that we need to do to live on planet Earth. We need to eat, we need to have a house. Well, we need to have a shelter. We need to have some kind of a shelter where we have somewhere to lay our head at night. And although everybody doesn't have that, you know, that's not an easy part of life, but that is the energy that we need to survive as a human race. And if we don't have air, we're not going to live. If we don't have water, we're not going to live. And those are the types of things that we talk about on a mundane plane. But when we get to this point of the gate 60, on that respect, we're looking at having this supply chain things that we've been talking about starting to ramp up and saying, okay, we can't do this anymore because this is what's happening to planet Earth, you could say. So if we look at, for instance, I mean, I was just looking at an article about climate change and Christmas trees, and how it's changing, how, you know, people, more people are wanting to be environmentally friendly. So they want to buy like a fresh Christmas tree, but they can't because there's less of them available because of climate change, because of flooding, because of all the unfortunate things that are happening. So there's just this shift of, okay, we only have these many resources in our world. What are we going to do with them? And so what that infuses is this creativity, this ability to come up with an imagination. So if we look at, for instance, you could say the mirror of it, we use our imagination to see the potential within the limitations. So we don't say, oh, I'm limited, I need to completely blow apart, you know, my whole life so that I can get out of this limitation. Or we can say, okay, I am limited in, and I know that people don't like the word limited, but I think in reality we are. Even as a human race, we're limited. We only have a lifespan that's a certain amount. We can only live in a certain environment. We can only you know, metabolize a certain type of food or whatever. So we are always having some level of limitations. But what this is saying is that a creativity, an infusion of creativity, where we push our creativity out into that limitation or out into that space that we encompass. And it says, when you align with that reality, when you align with where you are in this moment, and say, you know what, I'm happy, I'm good, I am happy. If this is the one apartment that I live in, this one bedroom apartment for the rest of my life, I'm good with that. And suddenly you get this upgrade and suddenly says, oh no, we have a 2-bedroom available. Do you want it? And it's within your budget and all those types of things. And that's what the universe, it rewards you. It says, yes, you can have what you want, but you also have to understand that when you accept what is, then the universe opens up a brand new door for you many times. So that's basically what it's telling us. So we're looking at supply chain things and things not always being as they always were before. And how do we work with that? How do we use our imaginations? And how do we believe in a better tomorrow, we could say? And sometimes a lot of what I've noticed is a lot of people are doing things from the past. They're doing these things where they're reviving the old way of doing things, like preserving. Like that's something that I've been wanting to do lately, and I haven't done it in years, and just wanting to make my own salsa and my own kimchi and all those kind of things, like fermentation. And I know, because it's healthy, but it's that urge within us to kind of go back to our old roots to a degree, to actually support Mother Earth, because Mother Earth can only do so much. We as a humanity have to do as much as we can too. And I know that's not always easy to do, but what's happened is we are being forced into that perspective of, okay, this is what you have. What are you going to do with it? If you only have one color to paint with, how are you going to paint with it? How are you going to make that creative endeavor that you do as beautiful as it would have been had you had a whole palette of paints? So that's kind of what it's talking about.
I love that. It's just brilliant. And when you were saying that, like in my mind, I saw, you know, those people that do these amazing paintings with just a pen, with like a biro, and it's like got shading and it's, you know, there's detail, and you think like, wow, you did that with literally just one pen, no other color, like it, and it makes total sense. When you were talking about limitations as well and how we're human and we're limited, it's so true. You think about the temperature of our body, 2 degrees either way, and things really start to go out of whack. It's a limitation that we're born with, and it's one that we work within every single day. Like extreme cold or extreme heat will take us out, right? And if anything,
sadly,
right? Yeah, right. If we didn't have those limitations, all of us, we probably wouldn't last very long because we wouldn't know any difference. It's like, you know, the kids that are born without any pain receptors, and they end up biting off like their own finger or like burning themselves really badly on a radiator. Like sometimes our limitations are the things that really help us define who we are and what we're actually capable of. So I love that you mentioned that. Again, just some notes that I was writing down from earlier. One of the things that I really love when you said, like, what are you learning from it, right? What are you learning from this experience that you're having? One of the things that I put was only living in the now can cheat death. None of us are ever getting past that big dude, right? We're all meeting him at some point. But living in the now and actually enjoying the life that you have, whether it's got a million cars and, you know, loads of money in the bank, or whether it's just a small, humble existence, enjoying that and living fully for it, that's how you cheat death. Only love can drive out hate, as we all say a million times a day. And only acceptance is the thing that can really destroy fear. And I think this is one of the things, like when the scarcity kicks in, when some of the disruptions start, like we don't need to do that whole fear thing. And I think one of the really beautiful things about humanity, and I've said this so many times and I will say it until the day that I go to meet the final secret. I don't care what anyone says. We are not built to destroy each other. We're not built to destroy. We're actually here to create. The human race is actually a very benevolent and loving community. I really believe that. And in the days ahead, just like every other natural disaster, every other challenge that we've had, you always see people pull together and say, you know what, how can I help here? That's what we're going to get more of as long as we're open to it. One of the things that I also put is this whole retrograde and Venus passing through this gate might also show us, where are you setting your own limit? Where is it that actually the thing that you feel you need to push against is actually coming, you know, from inside, from here or from in here? And you know, where are you ready to break your own ceiling? That could be a really powerful moment.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I mean, that's a beautiful dimension to look at, that own, you know, because we say, oh, I can't do that because I'm A, B, C, or D. So this is saying, yes, what if you can do that? What if you try it and see what happens? You know, and because yes, we do hold ourselves back, and this is an opportunity for us to imagine something different, you know, and that's where I say that you have the other, if we look at human design, the mandala, and I'll just show you this really quick. If we look at the human design mandala, and that's not it. That's very similar, but not it. And we look at sort of, so when I'm talking about these polarities, that's what I'm talking about, or you could say that what we can heal through, and it works the other opposite way. So if you have this energy of the gate 62, then you look at the gate 60 for how you work with so if you're always about the practicality of everything and you're trying to have an expression of that, how do you work with maybe that what you just said, holding yourself back because you're too scared. Well, is it worthwhile? Shall I paint that picture? Because what am I going to get out of it? Those kind of things. So in other words, that's holding yourself back. So that kind of makes another situation of where you might be not exactly expressing yourself, you're limiting yourself, and you could be actually expressing yourself in whatever way you want to. So that's what, we're looking at when we're talking about these things. I just wanted to clarify that. And then the other energy that we're talking about is the gate 38. And so when you talked about we're all going to meet our maker, well, the gate 38 is half of the channel 2838. 28 is this idea that we are going to someday go to the other, wherever, the next calling, the next journey, the next part of where, we do. And I love that there's a new, it's a book that's been out forever. It's Robert Jordan, The Wheel of Time. And I've been watching that, and wow,
it's so good and scarily accurate for our time.
Oh gosh, I just love it. And I just love this idea of how they think about this idea of, the wheel will always turn you back out. It takes you in, it turns you out, and we all have our destiny and those kinds of things. Not everybody wants to believe in those kind of concepts, but I actually really love the way, he's actually passed, unfortunately, how he articulated the whole story. And the way of the leaf, those stories, there's so much richness within it. And it really does talk about this idea of why are we here? What is the point of us being here? And do we have a purpose? Is there anything beyond what we have in this moment? This, and no, we don't have anything more than this particular now, but this is a life. So, there's this perspective is maybe I don't necessarily like where I am, but I love that I'm alive. And it's like, I can always shift and get a better tomorrow. And I can only do that if I'm alive. So it's like this gift of being alive. And the gate 38 says, what is worth fighting for in your life? What is the good fight? What is the worthy fight? Why are you going to actually stand your ground? And this you can even talk to the Venus warrior perspective, the Venus morning star is like, why would you stand in your ground? What is important to you? And if we look at the other side of the energy, we look at the gate 39, this is provocation of spirit. Now, spirit, there's a multitude of ways we can talk about spirit and how we define it. But the other perspective is that it is an expression of our individuality. It's expression of ourselves. So I'm giving you my spirit by just, speaking to you, loving you, or whatever I'm doing. I'm expressing my spirit to you. And that's what we do as a human race. We express our spirit, but not everybody does that. And when we express our spirit, sometimes we provoke other people. Sometimes we make them think, and provocation can be, like you say, like the devil. You consider that, like some people think it's a bad card, but there's nothing bad about provocation either. It can be, of course, there's always going to be a duality to all things, but the provocation here is to provoke the spirit in somebody to realize that there is spirit, to realize that the universe does have you in its hands. It is protecting you. It is showing you. And yes, there's going to be times like when you have a child and you're teaching them how to ride a bike, they're going to fall, they're going to skin their knee. And you know what? You want to prevent them from doing that. But when you do that, you prevent them from living their life. And so you have to say that I'm going to provoke you. And maybe it might actually activate something in you. Maybe it will rip a Band-Aid off an old wound, but do you need to have that wound healed instead of just Band-Aid and a Band-Aid over it? So it's those kind of energies that we're thinking about. This is about spirit consciousness. This is about increasing your spirit consciousness and fighting the good fight. And so we could say fighting the spiritual fight, to say that I have a right to be more conscious, because ultimately, in human design, there's a couple things with the blues or melancholy. One, melancholy is connected to creativity. And when we feel that melancholy, they say some of the best and most inspired work was done in a state of melancholy, like Van Gogh, for instance. Unfortunately, he had a really tumultuous life, but he was most inspired when he was most melancholic. And, the other perspective of being blue or sad is this idea that there's nothing more but the mundane life that you live, the day in, day out, go to work, come home, eat, sleep, whatever. You don't have any way to evolve your consciousness, to see beyond the mundane, to, you know, get something more, to look at, to peer into eternity and see something beyond what you ever imagined could be, to get those moments of this mystical moment where things just kind of unfold and you just see something. Like I said before, you see something that you can't believe is real, but it is real. And for that moment, you can kind of get carried away in its transcendence. And that's what this is talking about. It's saying being provoked to see that life is worth fighting for. Life is worth it. And yes, life is about struggles, because struggles is connected to gate 38. And we know the whole story about the lotus flower, right? The lotus flower is an amazing flower, and it just kind of keeps surviving. And that's what humanity does too. We continue to come back over and again, no matter how many times we get hit. And the fighting is not like a fight of, I'm going to beat the crap out of you because I just feel like it. It's a fight of the good and worthy fight. I mean, if you look at the good and worthy fight, you would look at Gandhi had the gate 38, I think in a very high position. So that's kind of what we're talking about in that respect.
I love that. And I think it's brilliant and so fitting as well. I kind of feel like this might be a part of what happens with this Venus retrograde as well, like with some of the things that we see, some of the things that are revealed, some of the things that come out about, you know, hierarchies and structures and people in power. Yeah. The response is either going to be, you know, and everybody loses their proverbial. What does that solve? What does it get us? Nothing. Whereas if you resolve to say, okay, well, we're going to fight to make sure that we have better, then that's what we'll have, you know. And yep. And I really like that idea. What I was writing down when you were speaking from what you said was, I kind of feel like this might be for a lot of us like a mystical vision that's worth fighting for. Do you know what I mean? Like something that bubbles up from within you to say, okay, you know what, maybe this doesn't have tangibility right now, but there's a potential that it could, and I'm going to fight for that potential. I love that. What I also put here as well was transmuting your difficulties into producing gold and beauty. There's an element of alchemy to this, you know, where whatever you're facing, it becomes the fuel for something so much greater. Challenging authority, you wrote in the booklet for this card, and I thought, yeah, I feel like we might see some of that with this retrograde for sure.
Yes.
And choosing your battles.
Yes.
That I thought was really prominent. And, you know, it's true what you say. It's not just about the fight, right? Sometimes it's about knowing when not to fight and what to actually fight for. So when I say like choosing your battles, you can choose to fight for that mystical vision, or you can choose to jump into the mosh pit. Which one's going to get, you know, which one is going to get us to where we really want to be, especially on a collective level. I love it. All right. What about the gate 54?
Yes, leaving the best to the last. So the gate 54, which I thought it was pretty interesting, was that it is the gate 54, line 4. Now the fourth line, every gate has 6 lines, and each one has sort of, you could say, a theme that could be prominent within it. And every line has, like, for instance, the first line is a foundation that we built. The second line is sort of where we take that information and we're kind of working with it. And the third line is where we're sort of, the second line is working with it alone. The third line is where we go out in the world, we start working with this information and start to mutate it. And you could say adapt to it and see what works and what doesn't work. Then when we know what works and what doesn't work, we share it with our friends, and that's the fourth line. And when we know what works with and what doesn't work, and we've shared it with the fourth line with our little friend group, then we get to the fifth line where we share it with a bigger group. And that's where we kind of show up the universalization of what exactly this energy means. So if I look at the fifth line of a gate, just to give you an idea, the fifth line is always the universalization. And people say, well, what does that mean? Well, for instance, the fifth line of the gate 34, the gate 34 is considered the gate of power. It's like one of the most powerful energies of the whole body graph, in that it can do more than the average person can do when you have this energy. And it links into, it's really cool in that it links into a couple of different energies to kind of express itself differently. But the gate 34 line 5 is called annihilation. And so you look at it and you go, oh my gosh, I don't want that in my body graph. That's a little too freaky. But then if we look at what power means, so we look at any movie you go to, if you watch, the Wheel of Time, I mean, not everybody's watched that, but if you look at that point where Moran is fighting all the Trollocs or something like that, and she's annihilating things with her power, or you look at any of the Marvel, any of the Infinity Wars, or any of those kind of superhero kind of shows, whoever has the power has everything, and they can take care of anything. Now, annihilation in those ways are you get rid of the enemy. So that's how we look at the energy of the fifth line. So the sixth line is sort of where we're looking to the next line. And it kind of is the highest expression, you could say, but it's not always expressed that way. But when we go back to the 54 line 4, this is it's for everybody. It's like the fourth line is like kind of saying, yeah, we're going to spread this information. We're going to let people know about this information. And when we talk about the mystical energy, I have notes here. It says here that, and this is going to happen when we have that connection with, there's going to be a couple times when it hits the 54 line 4. But the one I told you, we talked about is when it goes Kazemi, and that's the beginning of a new cycle. So this is kind of heralding in this new cycle. I think that Mars and Venus will actually connect in the 54 line 4 later on. I think maybe in March or something like that. And bring that kind of just one more reason to look at this mystical energy and say, oh, okay, well, you know what? There is something bigger than us. And, there is help, because I think that the years have been challenging. They've been challenging. And it's always like, you put the news on, and a lot of people haven't been doing anymore because it gets too much after a while. And you hear, well, there's one more of this, and there's this and that, whatever. And you just think, well, what's the point? And this is saying that there is something bigger than you that can intervene at any time and help humanity. It's that moment where, for lack of a better word, the angels come in and kind of help the world. It's like if you've ever seen the movie Elf, and they all had to believe that Santa existed to get his sleigh to ride. It's like yeah. As a humanity, can we raise our consciousness enough so that we can start to raise the energy of the humanity, to see that we need to infuse more of this, and it's not about being just positive all the time, because that's not part of what it is. It's just about seeing potential for something better than what we have right now, but also appreciating what we have right now, having gratitude, but always knowing that there's always something that we can improve, evolve, and move to in a new direction. It's like the new stepping stone, one level up, but always having gratitude for where you stay. So the mystical, this is like where you, it's the whole thing about the fourth line is this idea that we all, maybe not all of us, but there's this energy. I think a lot of us want to know that there's something bigger than us. We want to be awake. We want to see something beyond the illusion of the Maya, you could say, the illusion of planet Earth and what we do. Because if you look at the world and the spinning circles that we're all doing many times, and we're just A to B to C, A to B to C, and we don't stop. But when we stop, we can see that there is something beautiful. Just look up into the sky and see that bird flying, or see the way the clouds have a certain shape. There's something there beyond what you see in this moment. And I think that sometimes just knowing that there's something bigger than you that's actually working on your behalf, that I always say this to people who don't really believe in spirituality. I say, even if you don't believe it, doesn't mean it's not happening. So for instance, if I'm home working and my family go to work and they think that I've done nothing all day, right? So, because they haven't seen me do anything, but doesn't mean I haven't been doing a million things at home. You see? So that's what the universe is, the same thing. We don't know. We just have to have faith that yes, there is something more, and be open to it, because as soon as we're being open to it, that's when we can start to have these spiritual forces assisting. And basically it's just that same thing that we were talking about, you know, brushing off our deja vu, and not thinking that the coincidence means anything, and not seeing the synchronicities as something magical, because it's just remembering that magic does actually exist in this world. And just because people tell you it's not real, it doesn't mean that it's true. You know, there's too many things that happen in our life that you just can't explain away. And this is where we're saying that, you know, we are seeing, we are having potential more to see something more amazing than we've seen before. But this also reminds us that we need to be in the flow of who we are as an individual. And I mean, that's a big talk that I talked about this week, because we are having a transit of the gate 5, was really talking about our personal flow. But as long as we're in our personal flow, then we are getting in the flow of the universe, and the universe will guide us to our opportunities. As soon as we're trying to be in somebody else's flow. So in other words, you're saying, you are more important than me. I'm going to just let you decide my life. I'm just going to follow you to tell me what I need to do in my life. And that could be a spiritual leader. That could be a spouse. That could be a partnership. That could be anything. And you're giving away your life and saying, yes, you can, but guess what? The opportunities in the flow are in your flow. They're not the opportunities that if you're in somebody else's flow, the opportunities are for them. They're not for you, because you have your own personal flow. And that's what this is telling you, the forces of magic and, you know, waiting for the right thing. The one thing that, you know, the fly in the ointment, but I think it's a really good thing to know, is that with this energy, this mystical energy, there may be people who are coming to the forefront who have all the right words to say all the right things, but we could say that they're not exactly, you know, they're false prophets, we could say, you know what I mean? And that's kind of something to keep in mind, right? So we look at the gate 53, we're talking about the beginnings that are correct for us for ambitions. Now, from the most mundane perspective, or from a monetary perspective, the gate 54 is leading us to get a better life, to have more finances, to be more abundant in a physical sense. And that's outside of the fourth line. That's what it kind of is. This is a talent that wants somebody to find you so that you can get ahead in life, that you can be seen, that you can be taken to the front and be, you know, seen for the talents that you have. And that way you're going to become abundant. It comes from the perspective of the I Ching, the Marian maiden, who was an empress, or who was a lowly person, you could say, and I don't like to use the word lowly, but in the old way, that was what they called them, who rose to prominence by having this ambition. And that's really what it is. But it's all about the right start. So if you look at the image of the gate 53, you see that there's kind of like a mist over the door, and you can see somebody there, but you're not exactly sure what it is. So basically it's saying you never know what your new beginning will lead to, but make sure that you have the perfect soil, the perfect environment, everything that you need to plant a seed is the best it can be. You don't know how it's all going to grow, but if you don't exactly, it's so synchronistic how they're all kind of click in. But if you don't have all the things that you need to have a really good planting for your seed, it's not going to grow anyways, right? But if you at least do the best you can and just open up to what exists and what happens in the world, then that's when you will, you know, they say, I read something the other day, what was it? Some of the biggest beginnings have very small starts. And I love that, because I think that really does kind of, it puts it in a couple words so that you can kind of click with it. But that's the mystical energy of the gate 54.
Love it. That's brilliant. So guys, if you haven't, if you're not on Denise's channel, please head over and hit the subscribe button. And the reason being is because you're going to get weekly updates. I love I prefer the longer ones, just because I like the way that you really get into them. And you know, it's not for everybody. So if you haven't got time, Denise also does a snapshot, which is really, really great. But I just love the way that you break things down, and then like my mind says, oh yeah, but that fits with this and it fits with it. Like you can see it in the astrology, and you know, sometimes even with the tarot predictions as well that I make. So I really love it. Check out Denise's weekly content, and also the Mandala of Life project that she did, which is huge, by the way, and really amazing. Very, very well done. So the things that I've got for this, and I love what you said about the building something better, because that's what your ambition is for, right? It's to push you on. So even if you can't see the results now, like, you have to have that oomph, that drive on the internal to push you towards that in order to make it happen. So some of the stuff that I wrote down here was finding both the courage and using the cunning and determination and skill to get yourself ahead, or to sidestep your challenges. Like, as something arises, like, use what you've got to move past it, all right? Or to not even get into it if you don't have to. Transformation, and I love this, and what I put here was ambition and passion into success. And then the initiatory energy of this whole period, really, especially when we've got the activation of the gate 54. Hard work meets talent is luck. That's what Oprah said, right? And you know, that, so when you talked like this, really encapsulated that for me. And I was like, yeah. And also, because we've got this energy of things, you know, being leveled out over the course of next year, which we both talked about, you could find like you're making more money next year. And the way that that's going to happen is by tapping into that ambition that you have. You can't tell yourself, oh yeah, but you know, what am I going to get from it? Like you said earlier, like, don't worry about that. Just do it. Right? Yeah. Jump in with both feet and make it happen. And I love that you mentioned the synchronicities. When they show up, when you have one synchronicity, and I say this to everybody, right? If you have one synchronicity, you're already on the path, you're already on the roll. Follow that one, because that's going to lead you to the next one. The universe isn't going to give you everything all in one. It will give you breadcrumbs, right? And we've talked about this before in so many so many talks, right? Yeah. But you'll get one, and it speeds up the energy. And if you have that ability to trust that and say, right, okay, I'm going to add to this and I'm going to follow this. It's mystical. It's, you know, crazy and all of that. Forget all of that. Follow it. It will lead you to the next one. And the more synchronicity shows up for you, and the more you get into that flow state that you were talking about, it speeds up. And before you know it, they just come one after another. And it's kind of like the only thing that can really knock us out of our flow state is us. You know, at that moment where you don't get what you want, or maybe it didn't quite go exactly as you planned. You know, as soon as you do that, you're going to go back to the start, and then you've got to wait for the next synchronicity. Like, staying in that flow is, I call it, like, you know, like the strong man. To get the bus moving, it's like this huge effort, and you're like, you see these guys like lifting things, and you're like, how the hell? That initial push is the biggest portion of the energy. But then after that, once it's moving, it's just hand over hand. Same with the synchronicities. Like, if you find these happening for you over the course of this transit, follow them. There are messages there for you, and quite likely some riches too.
Yeah, and if you look at the gate 61, the card, I mean, that shows you she's holding a lamp, and she's only seeing that small area of space, right? But if she moves a little bit to the right or left, she's going to have a different perspective. So this is your breadcrumbs again. This is just saying, okay, I saw this. Okay, I'm going to connect with this. And then I can move a little bit to the left and I can see something else. And what does it all mean? You know, like I said, intuition, dipping your hands in the sea, and what drops do you have on your fingers? That's literally what we get. And we all have a different interpretation of what it means to us, but ultimately it doesn't matter. It's our own interpretation. There's no right or wrong in intuition. And anybody tells you that is full of baloney. And you know, that's it. I mean, they really are, because it's not the reality. We all have our different way of being. And what I love the most is that you look at tarot and you look at, because I like tarot and I don't actually practice tarot. I'm not good at it. You know, I want to be good, and I've tried a million times to be good at it, but I'm just not good at it. And that's okay. It's not my thing, but I love to listen to people talk about tarot. I love to listen to you talk about tarot. I love astrology. It's been a hobby forever, human design, numerology, like all those things. they all have the truth within them. There's no better this or better that, and oh, this is the only way you can go. And what I find is so fun is that I'll do a human design like transit report, and then I'll listen to an astrology report, and I'll be like, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. Now they're talking about squares and trines and all those types of things, but it just all shows up, and we are given so much of the clues that we can actually align with to have an easier life in a lot of ways. But we're always going to bump into things, because that's what it's all about. That's the only way we learn. That's humans will not learn unless we get a kind of kick in the pants, because we're just happily driving our bike along, and it's like, no, this feels good. Everything's good. I got the wind in my hair. And they're saying, well, no, there's stuff over there. No, I'm good. And then, someone throws a rock in your spokes, and you're like, oh, okay, there's something I'm supposed to look at over there. Okay, I see now, and that's what the universe does.
My life in 30 seconds.
A rock in your spokes. Yeah. It's like, this is what it's all about. And it's always a choice to freak out when life shows you different things that maybe you don't necessarily, because right now Jupiter is going through what we call the fates, and that's where we it can be a mystical time where we are learning the strategies of how we work through the things that are happening in our life, but it's also a mystical time where we can kind of find insights into how we can work through things and look at the resilience of how we are as a human, and how we can manage, like when that whole dozen of eggs falls on the floor, and not go, whatever. It's like, yeah, I don't like to clean it, but I'll clean it. The other day, I bought this box of blueberries, and it was like the curse from gosh knows, it kept falling out of the fridge. And I mean, literally 3 times the blueberries fell over the floor. And I said, okay, loser, put an elastic band around the blueberries so they don't do it for the last time, like I shouldn't call myself loser, but it's like, come on, click it. And that's what the universe is doing to you. It's like, keeps clicking and saying, okay, do this, come on, you can do this, come on, you can do this. And it gets a little bit more it lets you know a few more times.
Yeah,
exactly.
Sure.
Exactly.
Love that. Just to touch on something that you mentioned earlier as well about the potential snake oil salesman.
Yes.
Watch out for those next year. I mean, I do believe with Jupiter in Pisces, we are going to see a lot of that falling away. I think a lot of veils are going to be dropped. And I think, so the way that I kind of saw this is it's going to go like this. It's going to peak at one point, and then everyone's going to be like, yeah, you know what, we need to peel some of these back, because actually, we've been buying into this for the last 6 to 8 months. And you know what, you're kind of full of baloney, as you said. Do you know what I mean? Like, so we'll definitely see that. It's really funny what you said about the different systems and how they all kind of speak the same truths. It's so true, because a lot of the things that you said came up in the numerology for 2022 as well.
Exactly.
Like, yeah,
exactly.
It's amazing how interconnected the systems are. And like when you put all of these things together like this, you start to get a much clearer picture. When you bring the human design in, and the astrology and the numerology and the tarot, that's when you start to look at it like a really big picture, and you see, okay, I can work within all of these parameters of stuff. Really, really.
And we're always stronger together, right? We're always stronger together. And so bring all the systems together, be stronger, get a stronger message, a more defined message. And that's literally what we're doing. We're trying to kind of get that little clue to just kind of send us on our path,
Love it. Okay, so shall we look at some of the dates and some of the other bits here that came up for this transit that I found really interesting? So obviously Venus will go retrograde at 26 of Capricorn on the 19th of December. And that will kind of pull apart by the time we get to New Year's Eve, so the 31st of December. Mm-hmm. What I found really interesting, and we'll talk about the midpoint as well that you mentioned earlier, because the Venus Cazimi, really, really interesting, is that Mercury will go retrograde around that 26th degree. Mm-hmm. Well, actually, it will come out of Aquarius and come back into Capricorn, but when it passes over that 26th degree, and I find this really interesting because this is kind of like the overlap point for both of them. The fixed star that sits at 25 of Capricorn is called Terabellum. And so I looked at some of the qualities. It's not the nicest star, apparently, but with world events and things that have happened, it kind of really rung true for some of what could happen. So some of the qualities of this star are fortune and disgrace, and how those things might go in hand in hand, or maybe even how people have made their fortunes in ways that are less than ethical, and all of that kind of stuff. Repulsiveness, bad morals, perverse tastes, and unfortunate love affairs. And so the thing that I thought about with the bad morals and the repulsiveness and the perverse tastes was the Maxwell case. I wonder if we're going to see something sort of unfold in or around that. And then the other part of this is some of the famous people that have prominent parts of their astrological chart conjunct this star really show up very prominently. So Marilyn Manson has the part of fortune conjunct this star, and when you look at him and his whole presence, it kind of really makes sense, right? Tiger Woods has Mercury conjunct this star in his natal chart, unfortunate love affairs, etc. And then Britney Spears has this star conjunct her Venus and her South Node. And I found that one really, really interesting, because it's like when you think about Venus representing love, in her life, from what we can see from the outside, it's love that's betrayed Britney. Do you know what I mean? Like with her, her ex-husband, and potentially this new boyfriend. I hope it doesn't happen again. Right. And then the whole thing with her family. So really potent, really interesting stuff there. And it kind of makes sense as well, because you think Capricorn would be technically her second house from her sun anyway, because she's a Sagittarius, right?
Yeah.
So I find that really interesting, this whole thing about money and finances and all in there. So the fact that Mercury is going to come over that 26th degree, the point at which Venus goes retrograde, and at that point it all being conjunct Pluto, really spoke to me. I was like, okay, I think we're going to see some grand sort of either reveal or clearing up of something.
I think that what's interesting about Britney Spears is that, just a side note, that she has what's called, for lack of a better term, it's called the gates of madness. And I don't want anybody to think that if this is energy that you have, that's what they call it. And I think they should come up with a better thing. But what it means is that you have all three head gates defined. And what that means is that they don't have any access to be able to be expressed verbally. So in other words, all those thoughts that you're thinking, all that inspiration that you have, it doesn't go anywhere. It just, I sort of liken it to having a bubblegum machine where you put the money and the bubblegum never comes out. It's just all, and then somebody's always adding more bubblegum to the machine. And so it gets more and more pressurized. So she has all three gates, 63, 61, and 60, all defined in her body graph without any access. Yes, she has the gates of madness, but is she really mad? No, it means she's got a lot of inspiration. She's got a lot of pressure. And I think that what's interesting is when she got her conservatorship released or whatever, thrown away, was when Uranus was in the gate 24, which gives her a full channel where she finally has access to speak the truth. So
that's insane.
I know. And so I love these synchronicities that you see and you go, wow, she got that transit. I mean, I've looked at transits, for instance, for writers when they come up with their big work, and you just kind of blows your mind how a particular transit, as Steve Jobs, some of the biggest transits he had when he got accepted back into Apple, and they said, okay, you're back in, type of thing, like massive transits. But with her, I thought that was really interesting. She finally is able to, and it's 6124, the unknowable. She finally had that energy of click. Okay, now I know something. Now I can express to the world what I know, but I didn't have the words for before. And that's what basically this is telling us.
Mind blown right now.
Yeah, exactly.
That's huge. Yeah. Wow. Okay, so what do you want to look at some dates now, or maybe the gates that those are going to pass through?
Yeah, we could. I don't know if we're going to
we're
tire
doing
people
for
out with this, or
time.
should
I
we do
think
cards for
probably
them?
got,
Or I don't know. What do you think? It's up
let's
to you.
let
I'm
me
completely fine to talk forever, you know that, but I just want people to feel like they're still having engagement with the topic. But yeah, definitely we could look at the dates, because I know that you said the 31st. Yeah, that's the gate 61 line 3. And again, this is this inspiration, this unknowable, but this is where we're sort of adapting to it. We're trying to experiment with what we know and what we don't know. Trying to figure out what it all means, I guess, in a lot of ways. And this again is inspiration, but because we have Uranus placed in a position where it's connecting with Pluto. Now, in an astrology way, it doesn't really connect with Pluto, but in a human design way, it actually does. And so it's making this flow of energy so that we can get this clarity and awareness of what those things mean. But again, it's experimenting with it. It's where we're taking this information out into the world and kind of giving it a spin to see how it looks in the world. And we don't necessarily know how it's going to look, but we're going to collect some information. And that would be on the I know that Aries is going to be meeting Venus and Pluto as well, too. And that would be on December 31st. I think Eris is involved. I don't do much with Eris, but I just heard, I read that was happening too. And the goddess of discord, and just it's about fairness and about everybody should have everybody should be treated fairly, instead of, you're here and you're there and you're supposed to stay here. And we also should have an opportunity to have something good in our lives too. I mean, I think should be a human right, that we all have an opportunity to have a life that we feel is worth living for us. That may not look like everybody else's, but it's worth living for us.
Yeah, for sure. And, and at least access to whatever might be able to make that happen.
Exactly.
When you
that's the
mentioned
key.
when you mentioned the fairness thing, that really, really rings true. The other two dates that I think are quite prominent in this one are Venus will trine the moon on the 11th of January. But at the same time, at that point, Mercury is going to be conjunct Saturn, and they will both be squaring Uranus. So I think that could be a bit of an interesting day for sure. And then the final one, I mean, there are others obviously in this, but the day that Venus goes direct on the 29th of January, there's going to be a stellium in Capricorn. There'll be Venus, Pluto, Mars, the Moon, and Mercury. So it's going to be a very interesting time at that point for sure.
Well, I mean, that actually looks like a decent day. We have Venus in the gate 38. So we have Venus going to bring a harmonious kind of fighting the right good fight. That's basically what it is. I have the energy. I have this written down. And then Mars is in the gate 58 because they haven't made a conjunction. I mean, technically, if you look at astrology, they would have made a conjunction, but because of human design, it's just like a degree off where they're in different gates. Now, gate 58 for Mars is, it's called joy, which is actually pretty, it's not I wouldn't say it's a bad word. So the gate 58 is the one that actually gets transited around the holidays. It's the let's eat, drink, and be merry and enjoy life, and the party's always to another party, and sometimes it's overindulgence and all those types of things, but ultimately it's about having a lot of fun. Mars in this energy is mainly neutral, but there is this energy to sometimes always want the next good thing coming your way. Basically, it's like, okay, so I've done that, what else, that person that says, what else, where's the next party, what's the next good thing? Exactly. But for the most part, the gate 58 it's the stimulation is the key to joy. So in other words, being stimulated by life, and whatever that looks like, is the key to finding joy in life. And joy is from being stimulated by maybe the smallest things that most people don't consider to be beautiful. I watched this couple on YouTube. They're in Alaska and they live in Alaska. And I watched the woman. I mean, I've never seen anybody so connected with living this life. She just said, she's looking at a magazine and she said, I could live to be 80 and I still wouldn't be able to live all the things I want to live. And she lives they live a very rustic life. They live out in Alaska. She has joy when she does the laundry with a washer spin dryer, where most of us be, oh gosh, it is like, and she's exactly, she finds joy in it. She finds joy in preserving. She finds joy in life. And I think that this is what it tells us, that what we find joyful you know, could be so small. It doesn't have to be, you know, on a Caribbean cruise where, you know, all you can eat buffet. It could be something else. You know, it could be looking at, you know, I always go back to the birds because I have a big thing with birds, but just looking at them, you know, bath themselves in a puddle, you know, like that to me is joy, you know.
So the one thing that I forgot because I glossed over, the Venus Cazimi on the 8th
Oh,
of January.
yeah. Well, we did talk about that though with the gate 54 because it's actually going to come
Yeah.
in the 54 line word for. So that basically is the energy that we will be seeing, and that's beginning a new cycle. And it kind of bodes to a mystical cycle, or maybe more potential to be more open about our mystical experiences, about the things that we think that should be hidden away. Because, you know, there's this idea that, you know, what's wrong with you? Why do you think you saw that? Like, I mean, I've heard more than a few stories of young people who have had these, they could see the spirit of their passed over grandfather when they were like 5, and they told their parents, and they said the parents would say, don't tell anybody,
Yeah.
don't tell anybody, you know, and you might have had those experiences, but ultimately, you know what I mean? It's like those things that let's be open to the idea that there is something beyond what we see. There is something more than big business and you know, the latest new gadget. PlayStation 5 seems to be the big thing this year that nobody's getting, but you know what I mean? I hear that. I hear that from my children, so that's why I know about it. That nobody's getting, I just said, right? Nobody in this family.
Excellent. All right, this has been great. So before we go, I'm just going to pull one card for each sign just to see
Sure.
what they might need to know about this this transit. So I will bless my deck of cards with all forms of love, light, peace, prosperity, and abundance. And I pray that the messages that come through are ultimately clear and concise, and they help you on your path to your highest vibrational good. So Denise, when you're ready, just say when. We'll start with Aries and we'll go from there.
When?
Right, so Aries has the devil. All right, so yes, this transit could be about excess for you, but it could also be a time where it's being highlighted to you what you're doing in excess. And so this could really show you what you might need to release, what you might need to let go of. Or remember what I said right at the beginning of the video when I talked about some of the positive attributes of this card. Where is it that you can get behind something that you're doing 100%? Where is it that you can really give more of yourself to something that actually means something to you? Whether it feels like it's stupid to other people, whether it makes sense to them or not, like where is it that you can get obsessed in the best way about something that really sets you alight, that really wakes you up, right? This could be Venus transit in, you know, the sign of Capricorn. It's interesting because Aries and Capricorn have a very interesting energy dynamic going on anyway, right? So really, in a way, because this is the Capricorn card, maybe this is time that you step into your own authority and start to really give that a channel to do something with it. You know, you can either be ruled by your fears and your obsessions, or you can use that energy and channel it into something greater for yourself.
I actually wrote a little something about that really quick because it's going to happen in the 10th house. And I think it's cool because Capricorn, that you said the devil represents Capricorn. So basically it just says this is going to be focused towards your career, social status, your profession, your relationship to money based on your career, and how people see you might change. And it can be changes at your workplace. Certain people may leave, or change in public relationships, how you're seen by the public, and energy forward in regards to work and career and potential changes that you might make. So in other words, you're changing to your career, how you look, might be your workspace, those types of things can be in focus.
Love it. That. Yeah, brilliant. All right, so for Taurus, when you're ready.
When?
Taurus, you have the Chariot card, right? So where is it that you can put your foot on the pedal? Taurus is known for doing things slowly, steadily, methodically, but where is it that you can speed this up? Where is it in some regard that you can push beyond what it is that you know now and go for what it is that you don't, and maybe go into some sort of familiar, some sort of unfamiliar territory? The other thing that I love about this card is it's, you know, it represents victory and success and going after things and achieving them. Sometimes the thing that we need to conquer in order to succeed is ourselves, or an aspect of ourselves. That's what the two sphinxes on the card represent, balancing the two aspects of self, because when one thing, you know, or one side of us pulls too far ahead, what happens? We go in a circle, right? It's like when you're rowing in a boat and you only row with one oar, you just kind of spin around, right? Chasing your tail. Whereas if you can use both of those to propel you forward, this could really, like this transit could really show you how to get ahead, and it could see you getting maybe further ahead and into spaces that you never even dreamed, providing you're willing to dig into the right space to pull yourself forward with all that you know.
And that's in the 9th house. And that is related to long distance travel, astrology, spirituality, higher education, teaching opportunities might arise. Publishing is part of this. And this is a potential for spiritual beliefs changing, changing your habits related to your spiritual habits, changing how you look sometimes, because it's connecting to, if you look at your if you look at your Venus ruled houses, moving to another country for work, spiritual and or religious interests may be expanded or changed, and foreign things of all kinds may play a part in your life. So that's
that. And the Chariot is travel as well.
exactly.
Right?
So it all it so clicks in, right? That's cool.
Yeah, love it. All right, for Gemini.
When I kind of had a little blip there.
It happens to everyone. All right, so Gemini has
Ooh.
the 9 of Pentacles. This is really nice. And I think in a way, this is going to show you not only how to appreciate more of what you have, but how to create more of what you appreciate. There's a sense here that you're discovering how to refine your approach to something. And that refinement or that understanding of what you've done that works and how to create more of that, how to really give yourself the best of what you can have from your inner resources to create more of your outer resources. What I also love about this card as well, it suggests that you're no longer going to be happy with just what does. You want the best of everything. And it doesn't have to be, you know, like a gold toilet seat or whatever. It's more about, you know what, if I can only afford I don't know, 3 meters of velvet, let me make something out of that 3 meters of velvet that is like the best thing that it can be. Do you know what I mean? It's like having the best of the experiences that you can have. I really love this card because it always suggests ease, but it also suggests as well hard work, right? So it's like getting down in the dirt for the goods.
Yeah, and I like that you said that, because we have to remember that every one of these houses that we are talking about are going to have the themes that we talked about with the human design themes, and 60 is working within your limitations, right? Which you said, you know, that which you just were talking about. What if you only can buy 3 meters of velvet, what can you make with it? So that really does click. So Venus is going to be in your 8th house, and again it clicks with the Pentacles. It can sometimes mean an inheritance or benefit from the resources of others, taxes, other people's money, your relationship to death, other resources, and you might have a deep change with how you perceive death and the death process and life on earth. This is an area for debts, loans, and responsibilities, and potentially hidden debts could show up. So it's something to keep in mind. If you have a little bit of money you can put aside, it's good to just in case something pops up. And there could be endings as well, and things to do with your children might show up as well in this energy.
Wow. All right, for Cancer.
When?
Cancer has the Knight of Pentacles. I really like this, and I kind of get this feeling that for Cancers, this is you maybe looking at your longer term goals and asking yourself, how do I get from where I am right now to where it is that I would actually like to be? And because it's the Knight of Pentacles, you have to know there's nothing overnight about this, right? So this could be, in one regard, maybe you're taking stock of something, how far you've come with something, what the journey has been, how it's been challenging, how it's grown you, how it's shaped you. On the other side of it, because it is the Knight of Pentacles, this could see you looking further afield or further ahead and saying, okay, I'm not where I want to be right now, but this is what I can do about it. And not only that as well, this is the Knight of Pentacles. One thing that we can say about him out of all of the knights, he is committed to his task. Everybody else wants the fast, the quick, or the shiny, right? That's the three other knights. Whereas the Knight of Pentacles is like, no, that's fine. If it's going to take 5 years, then it's going to take 5 years, but I'm in for those 5 years. So where is it now that you can really set yourself a task that you can really dedicate yourself to and stick to it regardless?
And for Cancer, it's in the 7th house. So this is all about connecting with people, also maintaining relationships that you already have. Parents can be involved with this transit. Something connected to your parent could be showing up. It's how you engage with your family could be changing a little bit. And since it's an angular house, the changes might be a little bit more deeply impactful, because angular houses, the first, 4th, 7th, and 10th can sometimes make a little bit more of an impact. There's potential for moving or changing how you interact with people or relationships that you're within.
Yeah, nice. All right, for Leo, yay, my ascendant.
Yay. When?
Okay, so we have the Temperance card. Okay, so the first thing that I want to say to you, for the Leo people, Sun, Moon, or Ascendant, mostly for your Ascendant though, for both this and for what Denise is talking about, is going to be the most prominent and the most pertinent. But yeah, the Temperance card, not only could this be a time of alignment for you, this could also be a time where you really start to understand what it is that you need to do in order to enhance the experience that you're having. Maybe changing your daily routines, maybe giving yourself, all of these, in some way, I kind of feel like this is like a spiritual makeover. Do you know what I mean? It's like, what do I need to do to dig into, to get rid of, to sort the wheat from the chaff? It is the Temperance card, which is about balance and it's about alignment, but it's also about true spiritual alchemy. And the only way that that ever really takes place is by really getting into what needs to change or what needs to go. The other thing with this as well, the Temperance card, it's very often about healing. Like, this will show up for you when you're on a healing journey or you're going through that. This feels for me like something that in that, I almost want to say, like, everyone has that little small voice in them that's like, I really want this, but I don't really know how to make it happen. Wherever that is for you and whatever it relates to, it's through this that you're going to get that. It's through this that it's going to happen for you. So be prepared to do some spiritual maintenance. Get in there with your cleaning bucket and, be honest with yourself about what needs to go, what needs to change. Stay away from any of the drama, all right? You don't have time for it. You've got work to do.
And for Leo, it's in the 6th house, which makes sense to everything you said: habits, health, all the things. And basically, it's just habits that you potentially want to get rid of. It could be relationships with the relationship you have with your career. Are you working too much? Are you not giving enough back to yourself? What do you want to change? Do you want to change what you're actually doing for work? And are you deciding that what you're doing does not fulfill you in a way that you want to go forward with it? Because it's all about fulfilling yourself with Venus, right? And also you might have a new relationship that you might get at work. It doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be romantic, but it could just be a relationship that is part of your work that's new, and seeing what you want more of in your work and what you don't want as much of. So kind of balancing it out in a way that feels better for you.
Nice. Yeah, I can work with that.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. For Virgo.
When?
Virgo has the 6 of Cups. This is so lovely. So the Virgos, I want to say to you, this transit might actually bring someone or something back from your past. It doesn't necessarily have to be a person. It could be an idea. It could be something that you'd always wanted to do when you were younger. It could be some part of your brain that now kicks in and says, oh, you know what? I was really good at this, and I actually would really like to do more of that. So I'm going to do more of that now. And it's like, when I can't remember the guy that said it, but when they say follow your bliss, this is the biggest message that I can give you with this card. This Venus transit is really going to show you how to follow what you love. And the more you do what you love, the more it's going to attract good to you. This card, one of the things that a lot of people don't talk about with it is it's actually very lucky. Like, it brings lots of good energy to you, but it's usually through the guise of the past. And so sometimes people will miss the opportunities that come up with the Six of Cups, because it's like, oh, well, you know, I was good at that then. I might not be so good at it now. And I don't know if I have time to retrain and da-da-da. Well, this is what we said with the human design. Scrap all of that. Just do it. Get in, make it happen, because the chances are that thing that you bring back into your life could be your way forward or your key to the next part of your success.
And of course, it's synchronistic again. I mean, it's the fifth house. So it's all about love, sex, pleasure, and the creativity, things that you love to do for fun. How you look at the things that you do for fun may change, and that maybe you want more of it. Like you said, maybe you want to get back at that thing that you haven't been at for a while. There could be a focus on money and what you value as well. And you could potentially turn a hobby into something that you could make a little bit of money on, because you're changing the way you do it. There's also potential for a new life direction or honing into your life, your creativity, and also maybe romantic partners, maybe some returns by the sounds of it, what you're saying. And
Venus retro.
Exactly. And something to do with your children, because that's a house of children as well, or the babies that you consider your creative projects or your creative, things. So you're looking at things in a different way going forward. And again, this is a brand new cycle. So it's kind of a interesting place to have a little more fun.
Yeah, nice. Awesome. All right. For Libra.
When?
Libra has the Three of Swords. Okay. So we can look at this in two ways. The challenge, because we always want the challenge first so we can finish on a sweet note. Right? The challenge with this card is you're having to release something, right? So this Venus retrograde is going to either highlight to you what or who needs to go, needs to be released. And it might be something that you feel quite keenly, right? The Three of Swords is very rarely an easy situation, if ever. The fact that it is the Three of Swords as well, whatever you're having to release or relinquish, it's not without some pain, right? It's whatever you're going to release or whatever's coming up for you, you are going to, it may be something that you miss. You know, sometimes we have to have that grieving point. But with the, on the more positive note of this, it's kind of like whatever is removed, it creates space, right? It's kind of like, touch wood, but as an example, when someone has a tumor cut out, when you have, I don't know, something that's been obstructing you removed, right? Imagine like if you never had that surgery and that thing was never removed that, was giving you all kinds of grief. Or imagine you were stuck in that really bad relationship that never ended. Yes, you're going to go through that heartache of it ending, but now you can breathe, now you can grow. So I'll say to the Libras, whatever is released for you or removed at this time, if you let it go with grace and joy, just like Librans can do because you're Venus ruled, you'll be creating space for something much better and brighter to come in for you.
And, it is in the fourth house. Libra's in the fourth house. So yes, it is going to be potentially more impactful because it is one of the angular houses. It really talks about how you relate to your home, the most private space, how that might change. Maybe you're going to have to move, or, that type of thing. Maybe you have to let go of a place where you live now so that you have to go somewhere else because of changes that are happening. There's more energy with home and your living situation, and there could be changes with passing away, unfortunately, and also births though too. So there's always a duality in all things. Change in finances, resources, moving or buying properties, and relationship with your home or your parents can shift in some way.
Yeah, I love that. And also traditions as well, like family
yes,
traditions.
exactly.
Might be things that you end up having to let go of. For Scorpio.
When?
All right, so Scorpio has the Three of Cups. Nice. So the first thing that I'll say to you, if you're a Scorpio, this is really going to speak to, so the Three of Cups is reunions, get-togethers, celebrations, happiness. It's just a really nice card. It suggests that this Venus transit, maybe it's not going to be like a celebration and a song and dance, but I feel like it will be a lot lighter for a lot of you. And I think a lot of that is to do with the fact that you guys process at very deep levels anyway. So a lot of this you'll kind of be able to ride out. The fact that it is the Three of Cups as well, over the course of this Venus retrograde, give yourself time to maybe reconnect with old colleagues, old friends, you know, people that you haven't seen for a while. There's something about treading old connections, old paths that might really do some wonders for you. My best advice for you would be to keep it light-hearted though, right? The Three of Cups doesn't want anything rushed, hurried, or heavy. It needs joy at all costs, you know, maybe a little too much joy, but you know, all in all, not bad.
So it's going to be in the third house. And that is, again, like very much like you say, it's communications with people in your neighborhood or your siblings, if you have them, short distance travel, you know, just connecting with your siblings or those sort of people in your area of your community in a different way, maybe changing, sort of working through some things potentially. And it could shift. There could be some shifting relationships, and that could be on both sides of the spectrum. It's hard to say, but
yeah, that's nice. I know the third house is also skills as well, isn't it?
yeah.
So if you're thinking about learning something, but just for fun, because the Three of Cups, again, it's nothing serious. So if there is something you want to learn at the moment, if you can approach it with like play and fun, you know, like it'll be much better for you. All right, for Sagittarius.
When?
Sagittarius have the World card.
Oh,
All right,
nice.
so culminations, completions, but more importantly, this is a moment of self-mastery. This Venus retrograde is really going to show you how to do something in a worldly sense, or it might even be something that you choose to present in a worldly sense. So maybe you come to a realization of that thing that I want to put out into the world. Maybe you come to a realization of, you know what, I know enough to be an expert in this field and I'm going to act accordingly. What I will say with this card as well, it can connect you to the world on a bigger level. It can see you working with or doing things on an international level, which can eventually, you know, with more acclaim comes more money. With more, you know, money comes more reach, more power. This could be a lot of amplification for you, providing you're willing to really show up and show out as well, right? You got to show up and you've got to be present and put those things to good use.
That sounds nice. It's in the second house. So basically, you know, same thing, what you value, the money you make, how you relate to all those things could be shifting. Does it, you know, how your career looks and your status could be changing, and how you make your money could even change. So it's similar to other energies, of course, because of the fact that, you know, how your houses are ruled, for instance, with your I keep saying Libra, but your Venus houses, and so they do a duality, but basically that's what it's saying. So it sounds really nice for them.
Yeah, I think Sagittarius are going to do pretty well. All right, for Capricorn. So in the first house for you guys, this is a big deal because it's their transit, right? So,
exactly.
All right, so you've got the Page of Swords. So if you're a Capricorn, one of the things that I want to urge you on, the energy that we talked about earlier when we said be mindful of your battles. Page of Swords is very much, you know, aside from all of its other meanings, which I'll get into, this would be a time where just asking yourself, is it genuinely worth it? If it is, then absolutely go at it like the Capricorn that you are. But if it's not, drop it and put that energy into something else. This could be a time where there are fast and furious job changes. For some of you, this might be fast and furious promotions. For some of you, this might be ideas that you have that you really want to push forward, but they feel stifled in some way, that they feel like, you know, oh, well, you know, I came up with this good idea or this new system and it was completely shot down. It might not necessarily be a hard no, it might just be a not yet. All right. So this idea of picking your battles and, you know, only fighting what really feels right to you or what really feels like it's worth it is probably the best thing that I'll say to you. And then finally, this could be a lot of meetings, gatherings, or get-togethers, or likely interviews, some of which don't necessarily come to much. And then the last thing that I want to say is this could be paperwork, letters, or documentation that comes in that you weren't expecting. Keep your eyes peeled for that.
That's it's very interesting because I mean, it is the self and your identity, but if you look at the gate 61, it's this idea that you're pushing the gate 60, gate 61, and also the 38, they're all individual energy. It's mutative energy. You're pushing a brand new idea out there and people may not be ready for it. So it's, you know what, it's like you have to wait for the fruit to ripen before people are ready to eat it. And that's the energy that kind of really connects with that. You know, and it's also how you see the world. It could be a title or career change. All the same things you're saying is basically the same thing. Changing the way you look at the world, and also potentially being more creative, like you said, change in how the world views you, and a new way of even seeing yourself out in the world, maybe a better expression of yourself, and being more proud about who you are, type of thing. So it's so synchronistic.
Yeah, that's cool.
As they always are.
All right, for Aquarius.
When?
Sunshine brothers and sisters.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, nice. We got the Fool card. Okay, so new things, new places, new people is what I always say with this card. Very often with the Fool card, it is a reset, right? So whatever you thought you knew, that is no more, right? You got to be prepared to go in new, different directions. Now, for the most part, Aquarians kind of roll with change. But then there's the Saturnian Aquarians who aren't really up for change, right? It's still a fixed sign after all. And with the Fool card, sometimes the folly is to just say, well, you know what, I'll just do this because it's different, all right? And then the other part of it is sometimes the more dangerous thing is to stay exactly where you are. So there's going to be a time where your own discernment really has to be on point. Like, I would say throughout this Venus retrograde transit, check in with your friends, check in with your people, check in with your trusted confidants. And the reason I say this is, it's not that the information that you're getting from your intuition is wrong. It just might be, you have to check where this motivation is actually coming from. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're going to have to really get in deep into your own mind, into your own psyche, and more importantly, ask yourself, what are your actual motivations? But all in all, I mean, the Fool card is always nice. That little doggy on the card is a reminder to trust your instincts. So do check in with people, absolutely. But if you feel like, okay, now that I've had this conversation with my best friend, this still feels like the best course of action, then it's the best course. All right, but just don't go it alone.
Yeah, and I mean, Aquarius is going to be in the 12th house. So, you know, you talk about it is being alone and being in seclusion and kind of thing. So that's why you probably do have to reach out to people to get sort of advice, like you said. There could be a big spiritual focus that you start to look at the way you view your spirituality. It could be a change where you want to be alone. Even you may want to enjoy the time of your hermitage, which I love to say. You know, your relationship with your home can change. Like, maybe if you're somebody who's always out on the run, you're okay to be home and to be sort of in your own little space and those types of things. So that's basically what that says. And I think it's a great place, I mean, to think about the spirituality. And then we throw in the gate 61 in there as well. Again, one more time, and the 54, all those ways that you might be even getting more of a benefit from it, from this spiritual kind of up level, you could say.
Yeah, I love that. And this was the other thing that I talked about with the 2022 stuff. Building a solid spiritual practice is what's going to get people through 2022 and 2023, because 2023 is going to be a weird year.
Oh, really? I haven't even looked at it yet. That's interesting. Wow.
It's just going to be a weird year. And I think having that foundation of a strong spiritual practice that you build throughout 2022, and it will be easier next year because of the harmonious vibration. What I found really interesting as well was that Venus will be retrograde at the start of the year, and the year is ruled by Venus because it's a 6th year. So really, really interesting dynamic.
Very synchronistic.
Yeah. All right. For Pisces, last but never least.
When?
Ooh, okay. Pisces has the Star card. All right.
Nice.
So lots of hope, optimism, joy. Interestingly enough, so if Pisces is the 11th house, that's the Aquarian ruled house in a sense, right? You've got the Star card, which is Aquarius ruled. What this talks about as well, for those of you that are Pisceans, this might be a time where you start to think about how you can reach more people in the world. whether this is getting onto the internet, whether it's maybe launching a website, maybe launching an online business. For those of you that are ready to study courses, maybe you're doing this online, but there is something about you reaching further, higher than you have before. And there's, one of the things that we don't really talk about enough with this card is trust, but it's a self-trust. That's why the figure on the card is naked, because it's like, I don't need anything. You strip me back to my core component and I still have everything that I need to give freely of myself. So this transit could really highlight to you where you're ready for more, where you're ready for bigger. And for some of you, I kind of feel like this is more the fool's leap. Do you know what I mean? Because it's like Pisces is just going to go, you know what, this is uncomfortable. Let me throw that off and just go for it. Like the feeling that I get is like there's something very dynamic about the steps that you'll make as a result of or during this transit.
I love that you said that you're stripped right down and you still are, doing your thing. I love that, because that's really the gate 60. I mean, you're basically working with what you have, and it works amazingly. And yet, like you said, it is in the 11th house, and this is hopes. Yeah, exactly. Hopes, wishes, dreams, larger focus in your life. What do they mean to you? Any potential for changes to groups, organizations, the people that you share your vision with, and relationships with your friends may shift, or the groups that you align with may shift. Maybe you don't necessarily like the groups anymore that you're with, or maybe you like them more. You just never know which way it's going to work. But changes to friends or how you spend your time with friends could be another theme of it.
Wow.
And that's it.
All right, so that's messages for all the zodiac signs and everything that you need to know about Venus retrograde through the guise of human design and through the astrology. Denise, always an absolute pleasure to have you. Thank you so much for doing this. Thank you for sharing all of your wisdom. For those of you that don't know, we will be doing the winter solstice session again this year, and Denise is going to be one of my very treasured guests, and we will have a third guest as well, Heather from Astrology with Heather. So if you want to get your seat, there is a link for that in the description box below. Denise, please, before you go, let everybody know once more where they can find you.
HD with Denise Mathew on YouTube and denisematthew.com, and I'm on those both areas, and I do so appreciate for this opportunity to talk about Venus. I really love coming here, and thank you for letting me be part of the solstice too. I'm actually really looking forward to all of it, so thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Listen, all the best for the Venus retrograde. Check in with this video throughout the transit, and then maybe come back to it once Venus goes direct and see how it spoke to you.